Okay, so why am I here? So what we're doing today is, again, there's going to be a lot of information that I'm putting out to you. This presentation's taken about 30 minutes-ish, and I try and pack in a whole bunch of information, and that's what we can do as a school district is just provide information. Right now, we're looking at asking voters on the February 10 ballot to mark two different boxes, right? One box for an EPO levy and one box for a technology levy that goes into our capital projects fund. That's why there's two different boxes. And like Shelley was saying, we're going to be going, Kennewick's going, Pasco's going for levies. Our levy funds about 14% of our school district operating budget, okay? I'm going to get into some details on why we need levies and where are we using these levy funds to, like, what are we covering with these levy funds. But I'm going to go ahead and get started in kind of a brief conversation of what levies are. I got to be at the Richland High School open house. And when I was there, I got a lot of questions from parents saying, well, what are we building now? And one thing that folks should understand is that levies are for learning, bonds are for building. And so what we're doing with the levy is, this is essentially what helps us operate, what helps us to provide enrichment activities for students. In Washington State, we are limited to how much we can collect for a levy. There are three different values that we can pull from. There's a $2.50 rate. That is the max that Richland can collect. And if you've been watching our board meetings, that's what we've been talking about, is an estimated $2.50 rate. And essentially what that is you take the entire assessed value for our region, divide that by 1,000, multiply by $2.50. That is the max that we are able to collect. All right? There is a per pupil limit. The per pupil limit doesn't really play into our scenario. We are too big of a school district for the per pupil limit to really be a factor for us. And then the other factor is the voter approved amount, which I'll explain here in a little bit how that's affected us. But just remember, we get to collect on the lowest value of these three options. So we're asking for a $2.50 levy. What does that mean to our average household that we're asking to vote? Working with Benton County, we were able to collect an estimate for the 2025 year, what the estimated value is for the average house in our taxing region. And that came out to about $418,000, okay? So when we're talking about a $2.50 rate, for the average house, you take that $418,000, divide that by 1,000, multiply by $2.50, and so what you get is the average house is supporting Richland by $1,050-ish, okay? Moving on, how the rates have changed and why are we asking for $2.50? What I'm showing on this slide is we've got two different levy cycles. There's this gray levy cycle up here, which covered the 20 through 2022 calendar years. And you can see that voters approved a $2.50 rate, right? The next levy cycle, again, we tried to go for a $2.50 rate, but what happens is in Washington State, we have to try and estimate what a $2.50 rate would be, okay? School districts are kind of awkward. I'll say awkward, different than other jurisdictions. Other jurisdictions can actually go out and ask for specific rates. The fire district can ask for a specific rate and voters can approve that rate. Whereas with school districts, we have to try and, we ask voters to approve a total collection amount. That's what we try and do. And so when we're trying to estimate $2.50, you hear that a lot, we're estimating. It's because we're trying to guess what a $2.50 rate would be as a total collection. That means we have to try and guess what the total assessed value would be. And so in our different levy cycles here, we estimated a 5% growth for our region. And you can see we had higher than 5% growth. And then the next levy cycle, again, we went with a 5% growth, and the entire region saw higher than 5%. What that does, when we ask for a $2.50 rate, if the assessed value grows much higher than what we're asking, then the rate for the average house drops, okay? And so that's why you see this drop here. The voters approved $2.50, but we ended up collecting at a rate of $2.40 in this at the end of that levy cycle. In this current levy cycle that ends December 2026, the county right now is estimating about 15.9 billion assessed value. We asked voters to approve a levy collection total amount of $33 million, and so the rate for the general fund is going to be about $2.07, okay? What we're trying to ask for support is for the next 4 years, they've approved a $2.50 rate, they've approved a $2.50 rate, we're asking again for that support for a $2.50 rate. We are being a little bit more aggressive with the growth of the assessed values. Instead of a 5% growth, we're going to be estimating at a 10% growth. And so what that will effectively do is allow us to try and collect at a $2.50 rate all the way through. If the assessed value grows higher than 10%, then we'll see rates drop. If it doesn't grow at 10%, then what that means is that instead of collecting, we'll say in here, if we don't grow 10% consistently, we might end up collecting $49 million, right? The rate never exceeds $2.50 for a household, okay? It'll never exceed $2.50 for the overall assessed value. If it doesn't grow as much, then that just means we don't collect as much for the levy. So why do we need levies, and what are we at Richland specifically funding with our levy? If you've been watching board meetings, I've gotten into some details about the unfunded and underfunded mandates in Washington State, and that's really what's eating up a lot of our levy. These first 4 rows here show some of the unfunded and underfunded mandates that we have to provide as services for Richland. Special education. There is state laws that require that we meet the needs of our students in special education. And so when we're looking at funding for special education, there's a cap that the state puts on what they fund for schools for special education. And so in the 26-27 year, we're estimating about a $4.8 million difference between what the needs will be and what we're going to receive. And that's something that we've been working with legislature to try and increase. They did provide some increase for this year, but it's still very small. Materials, supplies, other costs. We're looking at a funding gap of about $7.6 million for Richland. Statewide, there's a $613 million gap between what the state is funding for materials, supplies, other costs, than what school districts are actually needing to spend to operate their school districts. What's interesting about this is a lot of times when we see these numbers, we look at this and we say, okay, well, this is just fiscal irresponsibility. But a lot of the challenges we have is the state is not helping school districts with the money that they need to operate, and you all know that. In the 2019-2021 biennium, the state had allocated 52% of the state's budget to K-12 education. In this last biennium, they allocated 43% of the state's budget to K-12. You can see that their prioritization of schools is falling. And a lot of that comes with, we see in special education, material supplies. When school districts are provided increases every year, we're provided increases at an implicit price deflator rate. That's an IPD rate, right? Typically, that's usually right around a 2% rate. And year after year, they essentially provide a 2% increase. However, when we're going out and buying supplies, you all are familiar with this. When you're going out to the grocery store, inflation has gone up way more than 2%. We're looking at consumer price indexes more around 6, 7, 8%, right? And so there's already a funding gap there, and the state does not provide what they need to for school districts to operate under this. Payroll benefits. This is a heavy one for Richland as well. We have about $7.9 million gap in what we're spending for payroll benefits and what we're funded. This is a very significantly underfunded mandate. The SEB health insurance. Once an employee hits 630 hours of work for Richland School District, we have to pay them medical insurance, right? If that person waives medical insurance, we have to send a benefit payment, whether they have insurance or not, we have to send the payment just as if they did have insurance to the state. So that's about $1,300 a month that we have to send to the state. I was just looking at our sub file for this month. We have 226 people that waive medical insurance. $1,300 a month. We're paying about $3.6 million in costs over a year to the state for people that waive medical insurance. And we don't get funded enough to cover that. Substitutes. This one is a crazy underfunded thing as well. So at Richland, we have about $6.5 million in substitute costs. And the state funds us for 4 days at $151 a day for 555 teachers, right? That's how many teachers the state thinks it takes to run Richland School District. That's ridiculous, right? We have 13,200 students. We need more than 550 teachers to teach that many students, right? But when we're talking substitute costs, again, it's $4 or 4 days, $151 a day. And that rate has not changed since 2013-14. You can look at an apportionment report from 13-14, and it will say $4 at $151 a day. No increase whatsoever. We get funded $330,000 for substitute costs. That's it. And we're paying about $6.5 million. These bottom 3 rows are more in line with why we have levies and a lot of the enrichment activities that we provide with levies. We all know extracurricular activities. This would include all of our sports, but a lot of times we don't think about the field trips that we do. We don't think about the before and after school club activities that we have. All these things that provide some great mental health support for students, some athletics, helping kids get aggression out on a football field or at the plate, right? A lot of that stuff. And the other thing about extracurricular activities that often goes unlooked at is we've got some academic goals of attendance and graduation rates. Sports are one of those things. Drama, I'll say some of the field trips, some of the before and after school activity, kids like these things, and that's a lot of times why they want to come to school and maintain good grades. And if they come to school more often so they can play their football games, they're going to probably graduate, because we find when you come to school, that has impacts on graduation rates. So extracurricular activities are very, very important for us. Staffing over state funding allocation. This is a big one. Here at Richland, levy covers about 13% of our certificated instructional staff. Covers 16% of our classified staff. If we didn't have a levy, we'd be looking at probably around 150 teachers that would be impacted. About 150, 160 classified staff that would be impacted. In some of the work that we've been doing, if we didn't have a levy, we'd probably be looking at least 5 students in every, more students in every single classroom without a levy. This also allows us to provide some additional classes, student choice activities, some of the different music options, some of the different art options, some of the different language options, right? If we didn't have a levy, we'd have to really look at a lot of these student options, our advanced placement. We'd have to look at these options and really break down and fund basic education, right? The levy helps us to do more than just the basic education and provide students with career training and that sort of thing. So that's some of what we're trying to cover with the levy. And so with that, what are we really asking voters to approve, right? As Shelley said, this is a replacement levy, right? In 2026, December 2026, the levy is going to expire. The average house, again, Benton County is saying the average house for our region will be about $430,000, okay? With our already approved our levy collection, that comes out to about a $2.07 rate. We do have a tech levy as well that we're asking voters to continue supporting. Average house is going to be paying about $1,070 for supporting Richland School District in the 2026 calendar year. What we're asking is that they continue supporting Richland School District. Starting 2027, it would just be a $300 increase on their taxes. That's what we're asking for. Help us cover all those unfunded, underfunded mandates. Help us to continue providing the enrichment activities, the school choice options for students, and that sort of thing. Just an additional $300 more. The subsequent years after that would be an additional $100 on top of the $300. And one thing you might hear from friends, family, neighbors is that Richland School District is just wanting to use a levy and voter support to build back our fund balance. And that is not a true statement. What we collect in levy dollars is going to go right back to Richland students. It's going to go right back into funding all of that stuff to help provide that enrichment activity for our students, right? It's going to help keep class sizes down. It's going to help keep some of these school choice options. What we're looking at for building back our fund balance is there's a LEA dollars that the state gives. We only get this if we have a levy. In 24-25, we got $5.2 million of LEA funds from the state because we have a levy. And the reason why we get this money is to help it's the state's way of trying to provide a more equitable education experience for students. I'll just say we get 5.2 because RSS values are different than Lake Washington or Issaquah. Those school districts can go out for levies at like 50-cent rates and still collect way more than we could ever imagine receiving, right? And so the state provides this to help try and provide a more equitable learning experience for students. And a lot of this, again, I said we've got net gain this year. It's the first time, $1.9 million. We would not have that if we didn't have a levy, right? We would have to have been looking at our costs and yeah. So it's a ton of information. I know it's all coming at you at once. But again, what we're trying to do is just provide you that information. This is being recorded. You'll be able to watch it, get some of this information again. Mike has the presentation, so if you wanted to look at that. We also have on our website a lot of this information on there that you can help point people to. Right now, that's what we're trying to do, is just give you the information. It's not going to be on the November ballot. It's going to be on the February ballot, okay? So we're not going crazy putting everything out in the public just yet. As we get closer, there's going to be flyers and stuff. We're going to try and send out more information. Hopefully the recording's good enough that gets posted. We can provide that information to our public as well with that. So I'm open to any questions.